Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with the new Smith & Wesson CSX. It is a hammer-fired pistol. It's very much in the same line as the Sig 938 pistol, which is very much in line with the old Colt 380 government model. It is a hammer-fired pistol that is very reminiscent of the 1911, just considerably downsized, and it's an interesting new pistol from Smith & Wesson. So we're definitely going to take a closer look at this handgun. What it brings to the table over something like the Sig 938 is a double stacked magazine and a higher capacity magazine than the single stack of the Sig. But before we get started with today's video, guys, if you enjoy the content that we produce here at the Military Arms channel, please take a moment to become part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. If you join Patreon, you'll get early access to videos like this one. You'll have direct access to me. I answer all private communications, and there's some other perks as well. So follow that link and become part of that Patreon family. All right, with all that being said, let's get started with today's video. Take a closer look at this CSX. Over the years, you guys have seen me use a lot of primary arms optics, everything from red dot sights to magnified optics. And why do I do that? Well, over the years, they've offered very good products for a very fair price. They have fast shipping, outstanding customer support, and that's why you've seen me using those products for so many years. If you guys would like to pick up a magnified optic like you see on this Daniel Defense Mark 12, you can pick up an optic like this one. Just put it in your cart over at pa.com or primaryarms.com, and if you use the code MAC at checkout, MAC at checkout, you'll get a free scope mount with your optic, and that goes for any Primary Arms branded optic. If you pick up an optic that has an integrated mount, use that code MAC at checkout, and you'll get a free Kill Flash ARD for that optic. So please swing by and check out primaryarms.com. So as I mentioned in the opening of the video, this gun is very reminiscent of the 1911, and I say that because of the fact that it's hammer fired and the location and style of the fire controls on the handgun. So it is an all aluminum handgun on the lower. This is not a polymer frame, although it does have polymer inserts back here that you can swap out. And it's textured on the aluminum on the front here. Has a nice deep cut under the trigger guard. Here's your trigger, which has an inertial safety, or AKA the dingus that we've dubbed it. And then we have ambi controls. So you have a slide stop, slide release on the right-hand side of the pistol, as well as a manual safety that can be applied with the hammer at rest home. On top, we have serrations down the slide, anti-reflective type serrations. Then we have high visible, but not night sights, 3-dot sights here that are windage adjustable via dovetails. On the other side of the pistol, we have standard controls in their regular location. We have the magazine release, which is right there where it should be. And then up front, we have slide serrations, and in the back, we obviously have slide serrations. There is no grip safety on the gun, and it has a nice beaver tail that comes out all the way to the end of the hammer there. Now, as I said, the gun can be operated both left and right-handed. You can load the weapon with the safety on. That's something you cannot do with a 1911. The gun is fairly lightweight, has a nice thick grip on it, and it has a good feel to it. Even though much of the aluminum doesn't have any texturing on it, it does have texturing where it counts, back here on the polymer back straps and right here on the front of the grip. It'll ship with 2 different magazines. One of them is flush fit, and you'll notice when I hold the gun with my big hands, I get 2 fingers firmly on the gun, but that pinky dangles off into space. This is the flush fit magazine, and they are kind of hard to get in, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But the flush fit will leave that finger dangling off the end. And then we have a slightly extended magazine, and I do mean slightly. But this one does hold 12 rounds. You'll notice it has this on it, one of these stupid things. Gun companies, please, for the sake of all things holy, stop putting these things on magazines. They suck. They need to go in the trash. But this, now notice the magazine is offering a lot of resistance because the magazine's full. Again, we'll talk about that here in a moment. With that magazine in place, I get about a half a pinky grip on it, but it's enough to where it actually feels comfortable. Guys, just lengthen the grip 1/4 inch. Get rid of that stupid spacer that causes problems with reloading, that can get lost, it needs to go in the trash anyway, and just give us a 12-round pistol. That 1/4 inch, make up your mind, 10 or 12. Give me 12 and a little bit longer pistol grip. Charging the weapon, as I said, the safety can be on. I'm going to go ahead and charge the weapon up, and now I have 12 rounds of Norma 115 grain ball ammunition in the gun. I want to thank our friends over at Norma for supplying the ammunition to the channel free of charge. It truly means a lot to us. Please swing by and check out Norma online. They make some really high quality ammo. So let's go ahead and put the first 12 rounds today through the gun. I have shot it before, and we're going to be shooting at a challenge target about 7 yards away. The gun isn't super heavy, but because of its all metallic construction, being aluminum and steel, it definitely seems to mute that 9mm recoil impulse more than, say, something like the Sig P938 with a polymer frame. Very pleasant shooting handgun, but it does have its quirks. This old beat-up handgun is a Colt Government Model 380. It's very much a downsized 1911, and of course chambers the 380 ACP. It uses a single stack magazine that looks like a miniature version of a 45 ACP magazine. It lacks a grip safety. It does not have ambi controls on it at all. You'll find that the slide stop, slide release, and the safety are in the same spot as you would find on a 1911, as well as the magazine release. This gun has very positive detent on that safety lever, which is important to me. I want to know that thing is on or off. So it has a very solid feel to it, and you can feel the click, and you can also hear it, so you know if that selector lever has moved or not. That gun, I believe, inspired Sig to make the 938, which is basically a 9mm version of that Colt 380 government model. This handgun, like the Colt, has a single stack magazine, but it chambers 9mm versus 380. You'll notice that the grip is really thick on this thing. It does not have a grip safety either, but that grip thickness is done for ergonomics, I believe. It definitely fits the hand better with that extra width. It does make the gun look a little bit unbalanced, but it definitely, for what it lacks in appearances, it makes up for in terms of ergonomics. The selector lever here for the safety is present on the right-hand side, thus making it ambi. However, we do not have a slide stop, slide release on the right-hand side of the gun. The fire controls on this, again, are just like the 1911, as you'd expect it. So that's one of the reasons why this gun is appealing to 1911 type folks. Now, with the safety on the 938, you cannot cock the hammer. And that's important because that changes with the CSX. To cock the hammer or to load the gun, you have to take the safety off, put a full magazine in it, and cycle that slide. If you put the safety on, you're not going to be able to cycle the weapon. Okay, so 938, very popular handgun, and this, I believe, is what Smith & Wesson was going after with the CSX. The CSX, again, very 1911-ish in design, but in looks, it really looks like its own handgun. It's a very good-looking handgun, in my opinion. No grip safety. The 938, just like the new Smith & Wesson CSX, has a pin that the trigger pivots on, so it doesn't push straight back like a 1911 does. It actually has a pivoting trigger, but that doesn't really, it's not something you can really tell when you're firing the gun. It has ambi controls, so it has the ambi slide stop slide release on both sides of the gun. Now you'll notice that it has an ambi safety. The safety is on, hammer is down, but I can cycle the action and do so safely with the safety on. So if I want to load the gun up, I can first put the safety on, put a full magazine in it, cycle that slide, and then the safety's already on. A little bit of extra comfort for those of you that are a bit nervous with single action only type handguns like this. Now the gun does have its quirks. One of the quirks is the disassembly, which we'll talk about when we do the disassembly portion of the video. And it also has a rather odd trigger. The trigger has what's been called by others a false reset. And it's only happened to me a couple of times, but basically what that means is that when you fire the gun and it cycles, there's what you think is the reset. I heard it and felt it, but it won't fire the gun. The reset's all the way out. So some folks have ran into problems while shooting the gun, especially people that are riding that reset and they're shooting very quickly. They may think that the gun has malfunctioned because they're going to pull the trigger and they're going to think they have a dead trigger, and all they had to do is just release that trigger a little bit more. I've seen people experience that. I've only had it happen a couple of times to me. I don't typically ride that reset, but it has happened to me as well. The gun does have an armonite type finish on it, which I suspect is much like the melanite type finish, which means it is a nitride type finish, which would make it very durable and resistant to corrosion. Also, CSX appears to stand for Chief Special X, which is paying homage to the old Smith & Wesson Chief Special revolvers that were pocketable little .38 special snub nose guns, which is kind of cool. The gun is fully ambi with the exception of the mag release, but you can reverse it to the other side. I think it would have been kind of smart of Smith & Wesson to just go ahead and make the magazine work, or magazine release work, from either side of the gun, since they've already gone that far with the slide stop slide release and the safety. But anyway, that's just me nitpicking it. Has a flat face type of trigger, which actually feels pretty good on the finger, and it really shoots nicely. Now keep in mind, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and lock the slide open before I load it. This is the 12-round magazine with the stupid doohickey on it that is just pure garbage. I'm gonna take it off. Now when I take a full magazine and insert it into the gun, it gets to right about there, and it starts to meet with resistance. So when you go to reload the gun, you're gonna wanna make really sure that that magazine is home. To me, that's kind of a big issue. I think they probably should revisit that, maybe open up that aluminum mag well just a little bit more to accommodate a fully loaded magazine. But once it's loaded, the fire controls are in a good spot. I find that the slide release slide stop is far enough forward that I don't accidentally engage it with my thumb or the thumb of my offhand or my supporting hand, which is kind of nice because so many guns out there these days have this setting so far back that you accidentally keep your thumb on it, which causes the gun not to lock open and just kind of slows down the reloading process. Now, as you can see, the gun shoots nice and flat, and I didn't run into any issues with that false reset. Again, I'm not the type that rides that reset, but if you're a competitive shooter or somebody that trains themselves to ride that reset, you're definitely going to run into problems with this trigger. But for me, it's not that big of an issue. Now the magazine is empty. Remember, it took quite a bit of force to put it in. Now the magazine drops free, which is a good thing because that helps to expedite a reload. This is a 10-round flush fitting magazine. Stick it in there. You can easily bring your thumb up and hit that slide stop, or you can slingshot it if you want to. But even with one pinky, or I only have one pinky on that hand, but even with my pinky dangling, this gun is still controllable and very nice to shoot. Slide always locks open for me, again, because of that smart location of the slide stop slide release. Overall, the ergonomics are really good on the gun. I like the way the trigger breaks. It's a nice clean break, and I love the sights. I love the lower profile. I enjoy shooting this much more than the Shield. I picked up that Shield years ago. I've just never liked it. It's just an awkward handgun, and this is going to go up against it in the marketplace. And for those of you that aren't averse to hammers, I think it's going to do pretty well, especially for those people that don't ride that trigger reset. So let's take the gun apart and I'll show you kind of my frustration with the design. First, you want to make sure the weapon's empty, so take the magazine out. It's going to lock the slide to the rear, inspect the chamber, make sure there's no magazine in there, and then you can start the disassembly process. So the 938 is similar. You know, it's kind of the old school way of using cross pins to hold the guns together, like 1911 or the CZ75. So you have the locking cut right here, and then this little tiny cut right there is the disassembly. And you have to line this little tiny arch up with the top of the slide stop, which is rounded right here. You can't really see it. You're just going to have to kind of fumble around and find it. So you have to pull the slide back. Now, you want to make sure the gun's empty, because this is one of the best ways I can think of to blow a digit off, because you're going to have to hold the slide kind of, you have to come up with your own method to hold it kind of in that position. And then on the other side, instead of having a pin sticking out that you can actually feel, you have this flush mounted pin that's part of, it would seem to be part of the ambi slide stop slide release. But this can stay in the gun even though this pin, which you have to push out, is out. So you have to use a small tool. You can't even use the tip of a bullet because it's flush. Make sure you're lined up on the other side, because if you're even just a little bit out of alignment, it's going to become even more frustrating. Then you have to push on that little tiny pin head and try to get it to pop out on the other side. Okay, now you'll see it popped out here. Now you can take it out and you can see that tiny little pin head. That's what you're pushing on. They could have done so much better in terms of taking this down from designing it from the ground up. But once you have that out, now you can push the slide off the aluminum frame, and you can see what's going on inside there. From there on out, it's a standard Browning type action. Have a captive recoil spring on a steel guide rod, and then here's your barrel. Putting it back together again, now you will notice your ambi lever is still there. That pin is not what it rides on. That's not what holds it in place. Put your recoil spring and guide rod back in place. Slide the upper and lower halves together, and you're going to want to look through and make sure everything's lined up and that you get that camming surface on the bottom side of the barrel lined up so that when you push the pin back across, and then once you get it started, you have to push it back to its takedown, and you can see right there, that's what we have to line up with that U-shaped cut. We're going to push it back until it lines up and then push it back down. Putting it back together is much easier than taking it apart, but man, is that little tiny pin that's flush with the lever just simply frustrating to try to get apart, and it definitely will require the use of a tool. I get asked all the time, Mac, how can I get involved in the firearms industry? Well, there's no easy answer, but one way you can easily get involved in the firearms industry is to become a certified gunsmith. Modern Gun School has been teaching gunsmiths since 1945. It is an accredited college, and also if you're a veteran and have a GI Bill, you can use that to enroll at Modern Gun School. So please swing by and check them out. I have a link in the video description below. The CSX sells locally for right around $610 at my local gun stores. I think that overall the fit, finish, and quality of the handgun is typical Smith & Wesson, which means it's really good. There are a couple of quirks I'd really like to see Smith & Wesson address. First of all, that trigger reset issue. I think people are going to have problems with that. Even me, running into it occasionally, and I'm not somebody that rides that reset, means that it's probably going to be a problem for a good number of people. The other thing that I would like to see them address is the fact that with the full magazine, there's an awful lot of resistance to seating that magazine in the gun. Given it's an aluminum lower and a steel magazine, maybe taking a little bit more material out of that magazine well on future guns would alleviate that problem, so you're not meeting with so much resistance when you go to reload your gun. Again, that could cause somebody problems perhaps if they're trying to reload their gun in a stressful situation. Aside from all that, I think that Smith & Wesson certainly has a strong competitor to the Sig 938 on its hands. And again, I hope maybe they address some of those concerns that I have and other YouTubers and owners have expressed in other videos and blog posts out there on the internet. If you enjoy the content that we produce here at the Military Arms Channel, guys, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There is a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, there is a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that join button and support us in the age of demonetization. And last but not least, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 14 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.